As the years unfold and the seasons of life shift, many find themselves grappling with an invisible heaviness. It's a sensation that isn't simply the product of age or physical decline, but something deeper, a spiritual exhaustion. Imagine a garden, once blooming with life and color, now overtaken by weeds and neglect. Just as a garden requires care to thrive, so too does the soul. Without attention, unresolved emotions, unexamined fears, and resistance to change can choke our inner vitality. Old age is often painted as a time of inevitable decline, a slow march toward the fading light. But this narrative, shaped by cultural misconceptions, misses a profound truth that Zen and Buddhist teachings reveal. It is not time itself that drains the spirit, but the burdens we choose to carry. These burdens are like invisible weights, a regret left unaddressed, a fear left unspoken, or an attachment clung to too tightly. Yet, as the Zen masters teach, liberation is always within reach, no matter how heavy the load. Consider Mei, a retired schoolteacher who devoted decades of her life to nurturing young minds. After stepping away from her career, Mei found herself enveloped by a quiet despair. Regret lingered like an unwelcome guest, whispering of missed opportunities and wrong turns. Loneliness crept in as her social circles faded, and fear of the unknown loomed large. Mei's once bright spirit felt dimmed, as though her soul had been worn thin by the passage of time. But Mei's story doesn't end there. Instead of surrendering to this heaviness, she embarked on a journey of rediscovery. Through the wisdom of Zen and Buddhist teachings, she learned to release the burdens she carried. She uncovered practices that helped her shed regret, embrace impermanence, reconnect with others, simplify her life, and flow with the rhythm of change. These timeless lessons transformed her twilight years into a period of profound lightness and joy. Her journey is not just a story of individual transformation, but a roadmap for all of us. Whether you are in your golden years or simply seeking to live with greater depth and clarity, the principles Mei embraced can guide you. Together, we will explore 5 silent soul drainers, those subtle forces that sap our vitality, and discover how to reclaim a sense of purpose, peace, and inner light. So, let us begin this journey. As the Buddha taught, you cannot travel the path until you have become the path itself. With every step, we'll peel back the layers that obscure the soul's brilliance, uncovering the timeless essence that resides within us all. 5 things that drain your soul in old age. 1. Regret over the past. Mei often sat by her window, gazing at the horizon as her mind replayed fragments of a life she felt she could have lived differently. The regret of not pursuing her dream of becoming an artist haunted her. She remembered the time she let a dear friend drift away without mending the bridge, and the countless opportunities she let slip through her fingers because of fear or hesitation. These memories weren't just fleeting thoughts, they were heavy burdens that made her heart ache. Regret, for Mei, wasn't just a passing feeling. It was a persistent whisper reminding her of what she believed were missed chances. It was as though a phantom lived in her mind, replaying a reel of if only and what if. She began to realize, however, that regret was like an anchor dropped in a river she had long crossed. It tethered her to moments she could no longer touch, pulling her away from the vitality of the present. Buddhist philosophy offers a compassionate perspective on regret, teaching that while the past shapes us, it does not define us. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. This wisdom shifted something inside Mei. She began to understand that the events she lamented could be seeds of growth if she chose to see them as such. The regret she carried didn't have to weigh her down. It could become the very foundation for her self-discovery. Mei decided to confront her regrets head-on, turning them into teachers instead of enemies. She started a simple yet transformative daily ritual. Each morning, she would take out her journal, write down one regret, and reflect on what it had taught her. For instance, the regret of not pursuing art reminded her of the importance of creativity in her life. Slowly, she began painting again, not to change the past, but to honor the joy it brought her. To release regret, Buddhist mindfulness encourages practices of visualization and detachment. Mei often meditated in silence, imagining her regrets as heavy stones she carried in her hands. In her mind, she placed them by the edge of a flowing river, watching as the current swept them away. This simple act of visualization allowed her to feel the weight lift from her heart. As May embraced this practice, she found herself forgiving not only her past choices, but also her younger self, who had done the best she could with what she knew. She realized that regret, when acknowledged and understood, could be a stepping stone to wisdom and freedom. By living intentionally each day and letting go of the chains of what could have been, May reclaimed the lightness and joy she thought were forever lost. 2. Fear of mortality. On the evening of her 70th birthday, May sat surrounded by family and laughter, yet a quiet unease gnawed at her. Amid the celebration, a thought slipped into her mind, casting a shadow over the joy. How many more birthdays will I have? The realization of life's impermanence settled over her like a heavy fog. That night, she lay awake, her thoughts spiraling into the inevitability of death and the fleeting nature of her existence. The fear of mortality has a way of narrowing our perspective, pulling us into a mental state of urgency and anxiety. It causes us to cling to what we perceive as stability, youth, vitality, and permanence, all of which are illusions. This fear robs us of the ability to appreciate the beauty of the present moment, locking us in a cycle of resistance against life's natural flow. Yet, as Zen philosophy teaches, death is not an adversary. It is a part of the rhythm of existence. What is born will die. What is gathered will disperse. In accepting this truth, we begin to see death not as an end but as a transformation. For May, the turning point came when she decided to face her fear rather than flee from it. Each morning, she began a meditation practice that centered on the cycle of life. She would sit quietly, imagining herself as a single leaf falling from a tree. The leaf didn't resist its descent, but surrendered gracefully to the wind, knowing it would return to the earth to nourish new life. This visualization shifted something profound within May. She started to see her life as part of a greater whole, a continuous cycle where endings feed beginnings. To embrace impermanence, May also turned to the natural world for guidance. She found comfort in observing the setting sun, the blooming and withering of flowers, and the ebb and flow of the tides. These cycles reminded her that change and impermanence are not disruptions to life, but its essence. She came to appreciate that the beauty of life lies precisely in its transience. Just as a fleeting sunset holds a unique splendor because it does not last forever. Through this practice, May's fear of mortality began to dissolve. She realized that by resisting death, she had also been resisting life. Instead of fearing the end, she chose to live fully in each moment, watching her grandchildren play, savoring the taste of her favorite tea, and marveling at the intricate details of a single flower. In surrendering to the truth of impermanence, May discovered the profound freedom to embrace life's fleeting beauty without fear. 3. Isolation from others. May's home, once filled with laughter and the bustling energy of family, had grown quieter with each passing year. Her children moved to cities far away, pursuing careers and raising their own families. After her husband passed, the silence deepened, and the circle of friends she once relied on for companionship gradually dwindled. May spent most days alone, her thoughts echoing in the stillness. The isolation felt like an invisible weight pressing down on her, leaving her spirit dim and her sense of purpose unclear. Isolation is not simply about being physically alone. It is about feeling disconnected from the fabric of life. It creates a void in the heart, leaving the soul yearning for belonging and meaning. Buddhist philosophy emphasizes the significance of community, not as a luxury but as a necessity for spiritual growth and well-being. The Buddha himself once said, "Admirable friendship is the whole of the holy life." This teaching underscores the deep interconnection between human beings, a connection that nourishes the soul and brings a sense of wholeness. May decided to confront her loneliness head-on. She began volunteering at a community library, where she found herself surrounded by stories, both those bound in books and those shared by people she met. Listening to others talk about their lives and offering her own experiences in return rekindled a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. The simple act of showing up, of being present for others, became a bridge that reconnected her to the wider world. In addition to her volunteer work, May embraced the practice of metta meditation, or loving kindness. Each evening, she would sit quietly and send thoughts of love, peace, and well-being first to herself, then to her family, and finally to the people in her community, even those she had never met. She repeated the mantra, "May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be at peace." Over time, this practice not only softened the edges of her loneliness, but also deepened her sense of compassion and interconnectedness. May also discovered the power of small gestures, a warm smile to a stranger, a handwritten note to an old friend, or simply listening intently when someone spoke. These acts of kindness, though simple, wove invisible threads of connection that strengthened her ties to the world. She realized that the key to overcoming isolation was not waiting for others to reach out, but actively nurturing the bonds that bring people together. Through these efforts, May transformed her solitude into a fertile ground for connection and meaning. By opening her heart and extending compassion, she rediscovered the profound joy of being part of a community and the shared human experience. 4. Attachment to material possessions. One quiet afternoon, May found herself standing in her living room, gazing at the shelves, tables, and corners of her home cluttered with trinkets and furniture. Each item carried a story: a vase bought on a whim, a gift received decades ago, a box of old photographs, but together, they created an overwhelming sense of heaviness. What had once seemed like treasures now felt like burdens, anchoring her to a past that no longer served her present self. Attachment to material possessions has a subtle way of gripping the soul. It fosters a fear of loss and distracts from the peace that can only be found within. As the Buddha taught, the root of suffering is attachment. The more tightly we cling to objects, believing they define us or bring us security, the more we cloud our ability to experience freedom and clarity. May began to realize that her possessions, instead of bringing joy, were holding her back from embracing the simplicity and lightness she longed for. Determined to reclaim her peace, May embarked on a journey to simplify her life. She started small, selecting one item each week to release. Whether it was an old chair, a dress she hadn't worn in years, or a box of faded letters, she parted with each piece mindfully. She paused to thank the item for the role it had played in her life, reflecting on the memories it evoked before letting it go. Some items she donated to those in need, while others she discarded with gratitude. With each possession she released, May felt a growing sense of liberation. This practice wasn't just about decluttering her physical space. It became a spiritual exercise in detachment. May began to reflect deeply on the true value of her belongings. She would hold an object and ask herself, "Does this bring me lasting joy? Or is it merely taking up space?" The answer guided her actions, helping her distinguish between what truly mattered and what she had outgrown. May also embrace the Zen principle: less is more. As her home became less cluttered, so too did her mind. The physical space she created gave room for peace, clarity, and meaningful experiences to flourish. Without the weight of unnecessary possessions, May found she had more energy to focus on relationships, hobbies, and moments of quiet reflection. Through this journey, May discovered that letting go wasn't about losing. It was about gaining the freedom to live with intention and gratitude. By releasing her attachment to material possessions, she opened herself to the richness of life's intangible treasures: love, connection, and the simple beauty of being present. 5. Resistance to change. For much of her life, May found comfort in the familiar. She loved the rhythm of her teaching career, the predictable patterns of her daily routine, and the dependable presence of physical books over digital screens. When retirement came, it disrupted her sense of identity, leaving her unmoored. Even smaller changes, like transitioning to using a smartphone or adapting to her grandchildren's fast-paced, tech-driven world, felt overwhelming. May clung tightly to the old ways, hoping to preserve what she knew. But this resistance left her feeling stagnant and drained of energy. Change, as Zen philosophy reminds us, is the only constant. Life flows like a river, weaving around obstacles and carving new paths. The river does not struggle against the rocks. It flows around them. Resisting change is like trying to hold back the tide. It breeds frustration and prevents growth. True strength lies not in rigidity but in flexibility, in the willingness to adapt and embrace life's natural transformations. May realized that resisting change was costing her more energy than it would take to adapt. Instead of viewing change as an adversary, she chose to approach it with curiosity and openness. She began by taking small, manageable steps. Learning to use her smartphone became an adventure rather than a chore. And joining a yoga class introduced her to a new community and a sense of physical renewal. These changes, though initially daunting, brought a surprising sense of vitality and confidence. When faced with change, May learned to pause and reflect, asking herself, "What is this moment teaching me?" This question shifted her perspective, turning uncertainty into an opportunity for growth. She embraced the concept of Wu Wei, effortless action, aligning her actions with the natural flow of life rather than struggling against it. Whether it was experimenting with a new hobby or trying a different approach to solving a problem, May discovered the joy of staying open to new possibilities. Through this process, May came to see change as a teacher rather than an enemy. She began to appreciate the beauty of impermanence and the opportunities that arise from life's inevitable shifts. Each new challenge became a doorway to growth, allowing her to see the world and herself in a new light. By surrendering her resistance, May not only reclaimed her energy but also unlocked a sense of freedom and possibility that had been waiting for her all along. Among the many teachings May encountered, one Zen parable stood out as a profound reflection of her journey. A master once gathered his disciples and posed an enigmatic question. "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" The students, eager to please, set out to find the answer. They debated, experimented, and struggled to grasp the meaning, their frustration growing with each passing day. Finally, one student approached the master, not with an answer but with an insight. The question was not meant to be answered in the traditional sense. It was an invitation to step beyond logic, to embrace the unknowable, and to experience the present moment without the burden of resolution. For May, this story became more than a lesson. It was a mirror reflecting her own struggles. Much of her life had been spent trying to resolve uncertainties, striving for control, and seeking definitive answers to questions about her past, her identity, and her purpose. This relentless pursuit had left her exhausted. But as she sat with this parable, she began to see that peace was not something to achieve. It was something to uncover, already present beneath the layers of striving and resistance. The story taught her to reframe her relationship with life's uncertainties. Rather than viewing unanswered questions as problems to be solved, May began to see them as opportunities to explore. When faced with moments of doubt or change, she would pause and ask herself, "What if this question is not demanding an answer but inviting me to simply be?" In doing so, she shifted from a mindset of control to one of acceptance, allowing herself to flow with life rather than fight against its natural rhythms. This perspective deepened her understanding of presence. The sound of one hand clapping, she realized, was not an answer to be found in thought but a truth to be felt in the heart. It pointed to the essence of existence itself, the silent, infinite space between what is known and what is unknowable. In that space, May discovered profound peace. She learned to savor the small, fleeting moments of life, the rustling of leaves, the gentle laughter of her grandchildren, the sensation of warm tea against her hands. These experiences were not answers but gifts, reminding her that the essence of life lies in the act of living, not in understanding it fully. The parable also revealed the transformative power of surrender. By releasing her need to control, May uncovered a freedom she hadn't thought possible. She came to understand that the greatest truths in life cannot be grasped through intellect or force. They can only be embraced with humility and wonder. In surrendering to life's mysteries, May reclaimed a sense of vitality and joy that resonated deeply within her soul, reminding her that some questions are not meant to be answered, they are meant to be lived. Reclaiming the soul in old age is not about reversing time or erasing the scars of life. It is about peeling away the layers of regret, fear, and attachment that obscure the timeless essence within us, a radiant light that is never diminished by the passing years. As May discovered, the soul is like the sky, vast, boundless, and untouched by the transient clouds that drift across it. Regret may cast fleeting shadows. Fear may rumble like distant thunder, and attachment may cling like stubborn mist. But the sky remains, eternal, serene, and ever-present. By releasing these burdens, we do not lose ourselves. We uncover our truest nature. The Buddha's words resonate deeply here. You, yourself, as much as anyone in the universe, deserve your love and affection. This simple truth is the foundation of liberation. It reminds us that freedom begins with self-compassion, with the willingness to embrace ourselves as we are, and to let go of the weights we no longer need to carry. When we love ourselves fully, we create space for growth, connection, and peace. May's journey is a testament to the transformative power of letting go. By surrendering her regrets, she found wisdom. By accepting impermanence, she discovered freedom. By releasing isolation, she rekindled connection. And by simplifying her life, she created room for clarity and joy. Through her courage to embrace change, May reclaimed her vitality, proving that even in the twilight years, the soul can shine brighter than ever. Let us take inspiration from May's story and apply its lessons to our own lives. Embrace the beauty of impermanence, for it is what gives life its preciousness. Seek the power of connection, for we are never truly alone. And find the freedom of letting go, for it is in surrender that we truly soar. Thank you for walking this journey with us. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to subscribe for more reflections on Zen, Buddhism, and soulful living. May your days be filled with light, peace, and the infinite beauty of the present moment.